All right, guys, welcome to the Ravit Show. Can't wait to introduce my today's guest, Alessya Visnjic. Obviously, she has been a very known speaker in the MLOps community. She does a lot of talking around AI observability, so we'll be talking around those lines. But for you guys to know who she is, a little background about Alessya. She's the co-founder and CEO of WhyLabs. The mission of the company is to build an interface between AI and human operators. So earlier in her career, Alessya was the founding member of Amazon's first ML research center in Berlin. She's also the founding member of R Squared AI, a global community of 1,000 AI practitioners who are committed to making AI technology robust and responsible. I can't wait to definitely talk with Alessya more about AI because it's such a hot topic, right? So we need to know more about it. Today, what we will also discuss is about her journey, observability of data and AI application, ML ops, data logging, and much more. Feel free to have your questions. And good news for everyone joining us today is that we will be giving away some WhyLabs swag. And these, Alessya has been very kind that she did offer these, and these look so cool, right? Run AI with certainty by WhyLabs. So we'll be giving away these. What you need to do is just put in hashtag WhyLabs. So let me just let you guys know what you can do is this is what you need to type in the comments and you will be up for the raffle. So guys, don't 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 miss this opportunity, just go for it. Okay, without any further ado, I would want to just bring up my guest, Alessya. Welcome to the Ravit Show. How are you?
Hi, Ravit. I'm great. It's so fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm a big fan, and it's extra exciting to be here today in the spotlight.
It's such a pleasure, right? So, Alessya, obviously, we are here to know about your MLOps journey, about WhyLabs, about you being the, I've always heard you talking about MLOps so much, about AI observability, and I know for a fact that you run WhyLabs. So, why not start with your introduction and we'll get into the weeds then?
Sounds good. Well, as you already mentioned, my name is Alessya Visnjic. I'm the CEO at WhyLabs. We are on the mission to build interfaces between AI applications and human operators. And today we have products that focus on machine learning and data observability. Since founding WhyLabs in 2019, we've been focused on building tools tailored for AI practitioners who are responsible for building, deploying, and operating AI applications in production. And I started WhyLabs because I strongly believe that AI applications lack a tool chain that will help human operators ensure that uh, AI-powered user experiences are reliable and robust. And today, this tool chain is forming to be what we call an MLOps tool chain. When I founded WhyLabs, it didn't quite exist. And before WhyLabs, kind of how I got into this journey, I spent many years at Amazon as an engineer and technology leader. And my career spanned building traditional developer tools as well as tools for AI builders. And my proudest moments at Amazon were launching, building and deploying and launching an ML-based demand forecasting system that forecasted a quarter of all Amazon global retail demand. And being on call for that really got me to experience the pain points that stem from the lack of the proper tool chain for operating machine learning experiences. And the other proud moment at Amazon was building an internal ML platform that became the de facto way of doing data science. Um, After Amazon, I joined the Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence, which was an incredible year and a half that I spent evaluating emerging machine learning technologies and and the technology's commercial potential. So, have deployed things over and over and over to production and really experienced early on the types of tools that we're lacking in order to operate these things, as we say at WhyLabs, with certainty, operate machine learning technology with certainty. So today, WhyLabs is truly a confluence of all my passions, statistics, distributed systems, developer tools, and robust software processes. So I'm really excited to spend the next hour talking about observability, MLOps, and everything that has to do with reliable software.
Wow, this is fantastic journey. I can't wait to get on and learn more about your journey. And definitely, you have made some amazing strides at Amazon, and here you are building on your own brand, which is great. We have a few folks. Let's just greet them. Joey is here. Hey, Joey. Joey is a great friend. He
Hi,
does a lot of
Joe.
talk. Yeah, he does a lot of talking around data engineering. So yes, he's there, and people are here mentioning about WhyLabs. So yes, for those who are putting in hashtag WhyLabs, we are giving away. Elisa has been kind to give away a swag by WhyLabs. So what you need to do is just put in hashtag WhyLabs, and we will be doing the raffle, and you'll enter. And by end of the show, we'll announce the winners. Okay, Aditi is here. Hey, Aditi. George is here.
Hey.
Mike is here, all of them,
So
and
great
super
to have you all
excited.
here.
Amazing. So, since you were talking about your journey, about how you moved from Amazon to now, obviously having your own full time company, so it takes a lot of courage. I should say that, because now owning the Ravit Show, I know how much it goes behind doing different things at company and how it works. So, what was your motivation to take that decision and move forward and build YLabs?
Well, I kind of took a bet against AWS, which is an easy bet to take. As you know, I was watching things unfold internally at Amazon and kind of the early adoption of machine learning technology, deployment of that at scale to production, and the types of challenges that we were facing, back in 2013, 2014. As we were living these challenges and building tools, what became pretty clear to me is that, if AWS is successful at democratizing the access to building and deploying machine learning models, then every practitioner, every organization that will get to a point where they deploy a model to production is going to feel the same pain points that I was feeling over and over and over while building those things at Amazon. So looking at that, I thought, okay, well, if AWS is successful, then everybody would need this technology. And I had the fortune of experiencing some of this technology early on before it really became mainstream. So I left Amazon to try to democratize what we've been doing there internally, open it up to everybody. And that's really kind of my passion and our big journey at WhyLabs.
Wow, that's amazing. And also moving on, I just wanted to know, what is AI observability and why start an AI observability company? Why not something a little different from that? So, yeah.
Let's explore that. So maybe first let's talk about observability in general,
Yeah.
because it's a really well-established concept in control theory. From control theory, we know that observability basically means the ability to infer internal state of a system based on that system's external outputs. So if you have a complex system, you should be able to understand what's happening inside by looking at some outputs that the system produces.
Mm-hmm.
So if we, unpack it a little bit, for AI systems, observability means inferring the internal state of how the system is doing, inferring the state of code, data, predictions, many, many things, because AI systems are incredibly complex. So in itself,
Right.
it's a really hard problem. That's one of the reasons why it's so interesting to start a company in this space, because building, imagining what observability means, kind of translating what observability means from this traditional control theory definition to what it actually manifests itself as with respect to AI systems is very interesting. I'm an engineer, so for me, kind of
Mm-hmm.
solving a really complex problem is probably the most exciting thing. But then
Right.
why start a company in this space? Well, because I think observability is one of the most fundamental things that a system must implement, right? Because if you don't know how your system is doing, if you're unable to infer whether your system is healthy or unhealthy based on the outputs it's producing, then you can't really
Right.
operate it. You can't ensure that it will deliver good user experiences. So the more complex the system, the harder it is to do. And I think the AI systems are really lacking. Kind of, we talk a lot of transparency, accountability, governance. Well, all of these things are kind of blocked by the lack of observability, because if you don't know how your system is doing, you can't really say that it's transparent and you can't really govern it.
Right.
So I feel like observability is this basic thing that, helps you do fairly basic activities: debugging, root causing, creating feedback loops, and then building on top of that, creating accountability and governance.
No, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And monitoring and observability of infrastructure and software application is a well understood problem. In what ways does observability of data applications differ from traditional software systems? What do you think? And why should AI practitioners care about observability so much? What do you think?
Well, let's start with traditional software systems, right? I think observability in the way is kind of table stakes in traditional software systems. We expect, if we run a web server, we expect it to have
Hmm.
logs. If we have a website, we have a lot of clickstream data of how users are using it and what responses from the website they're getting. So it's kind of in traditional sense of software, there's a lot of data that is being emitted by the system to help you understand the state of the system. In AI software, we could emit the same type of data that the traditional software emits.
Right.
However, the AI systems are further complicated by the fact that they are powered by data. So data itself could, even if no code changes or config changes have been deployed, the data itself can change the behavior of the AI system. So figuring out how to take the paradigm of observability and apply it to data is what really stands apart the traditional observability concepts from AI observability and data observability concepts. And the
Hmm.
reason why AI practitioners should care is because without without this sense of observability, and I take it we're still kind of in this very abstract discussion, right? Like observability just means that your system emits useful data, and it
Right.
could mean a lot of different things. But even if we just stay at this abstract level, if you do not have the right log files to go and debug what happened yesterday, then you don't really know how your system is working. And to get like super practical, I talk to AI practitioners, and one of the most common problems that they run into is if they're experiencing some kind of undesirable behavior in their AI system. Uh,
Hmm.
they need to go back and debug. And to do that, they often have to replay the entire behavior of the system over a course of an hour of the day, because they do not
Oh.
persist any of the internal states. So for them, in order to understand what went wrong, they have to kind of replay it in a sandbox environment and see how it works. And that is incredibly tedious and really time consuming. So if you have,
Okay.
a system on fire and you have to reproduce everything all of a sudden just to debug it, that means that, you might take hours to resolve the bugs. So observability is really what enables you to have the information needed to debug the system at your fingertips, and address problems much, much faster than without it.
It's like the vigilance that I think keeps you going and keeps you in place and just makes your work little more easier. That's what I feel.
Yes, and we're all about making everybody's work a little bit easier because we have so much stuff on our plate. And I think especially AI practitioners,
Right.
I feel like we're going into this paradigm of an AI practitioner has to be able to work with data, has to be able to build models, has to be able to build systems, has to be able to perform their own DevOps activities and so on. Like the job is becoming ever more complex, and the more tools we have to kind of make some of these steps easier and more robust, the better systems we're going to build.
No, definitely that is very true. And we before I jump into obviously MLOps, we do have a question from Mike Nash. With AI observability, do you like continually monitor or set up loops and review in cycles or iterations? What do you say?
Thanks for the question, Mike. I think it really depends. It depends on your use case because, if you have a system that's running some kind of live inference and you need to continuously monitor what's happening, then yes, you should try to implement something that would monitor continuously on some kind of, kind of DevOps style. Typically in the DevOps applications, you can have monitoring that is executed, minutely or hourly and so on. But then, we have many systems that are batch systems, and many AI applications run once a day or once a week or once a month. And I think if that's the system that you're running, then having some kind of loops and review cycles makes a sense as well, as long as you can go back into previous runs and into previous months when your system has run and figure out how is the last batch different from this batch. I think that is probably one of the key things that you need to try to implement in your system to get to a sense of observability.
Wow, that definitely answers for Mike. Great question, Mike. And I know there's a question about MLOps there, but before we start that, obviously, I wanted to know MLOps wasn't even a thing when you started, in 2019. What inspired you to focus on this space in particular? Because I remember you were one of those early adopters of MLOps, and those you used to actually talk about MLOps when the world used to be it was very new to the world. So tell us more about it. How did it start, and how did you focus in this space?
Certainly. Apologies. I think my camera had a little lag here. So
No
with
worries.
respect to MLOps, I think this whole movement was bound to happen. It was just a matter of time, because DevOps was such a massive and telling movement that we've experienced with traditional software. And as AI software was making its way to production, as the barrier for building and deploying models and getting them all the way to production was lowered, I think MLOps was a thing that was already happening for many years. It just didn't have the name. So
Exactly.
for me, with my background in building developer tools, it was a kind of I would say, I don't know, like I don't want to say a no-brainer transition, but I just saw so many parallels between the ML systems and how we run the ML systems, and how we run traditional software, and kind of what are the gaps and what's lacking and so on.
No, yeah, definitely it is something which is big now, and now the world is talking about it, and it still has a long way. Where do you see it going, Eliza?
Well, I think a lot of us in the MLOps community are making the bets that the MLOps software category and the MLOps community itself will kind of follow the footsteps of the DevOps movement. So there will be a hardened tool chain, kind of a table stakes tool chain that every AI
Hmm.
practitioner can just use without thinking too much about it. Like when you build traditional software these days, you just go on and say, pick up a monitoring solution from one of the monitoring platforms, pick up a testing solution from one of the testing
Right.
platforms, and so on. You don't have to build all of these tools yourself. Of course, there are companies that are massive and have very, very unique operations, like
Right.
your Googles and your Facebooks and so on. And these companies typically still build their own because their operations are so unique. But for majority of us, our as an ML practitioner, your main job, your main mission is to build better models, and you
Very true.
shouldn't be worried about basic things like building infrastructure for logging, for
Hmm.
monitoring, for A/B testing, and so on. All of this should be readily available to make your core job easier.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Also, there was a question about bugs, how to resolve the bugs by Ananda Ray. I'm just going back a bit to resolve the bugs. Can't we store the console information in the logs and check this periodically? What do you feel?
Absolutely. That's one good way of doing it. Actually, if you start so actually, I'll kind of answer this question in a little bit of a self-serving way. So one of the things that we made available at WhyLabs is an open source package called WhyLogs. And what WhyLogs enables you to do is essentially log the statistical properties of the data that runs through your systems. And by logging these statistical properties, what you're able to do is essentially turn your data from this concept of ephemeral, as the data flows, you don't really capture what it looked like, into a sense of a statistical fingerprint of what your data is like. And by storing that, you are able to treat it, as Ananda says, similarly to console information. So you can basically go back and see what did the statistics of your data look like yesterday or 10 minutes ago or an hour ago, and use that information to check it periodically and use that information for debugging. So that's spot on.
I think yes, definitely great answer and great question, Ananda. Thanks for that question. Okay, we will be going back to MLOps, and there was a follow-up question definitely from Manisha. That great discussion. How are MLOps changing the face of machine learning today? Interesting.
Oh, I think that is indeed a fantastic question. I would say, and sorry, I'm fiddling with my battery because, of course, when I'm on the live show, my
No worries.
power supply has to wave me goodbye.
Okay.
Um, okay, so now it looks like it's charging. So that's actually a really awesome question. I think there's this concept that I don't remember who introduced it. Maybe it was Eric Carlson back in the day from Stitch Fix, of like the full stack data scientist or full stack machine learning practitioner. And I think the MLOps component. So like back when Eric Carlson introduced it, I think it was, I don't know, maybe like 2015, and the full stack data scientist meant that you're not just building experimental technologies, you're also deploying them to production. And that's kind of what it spans. So
Wow.
you're
Yeah.
you're building like production grade code. I think with the introduction of MLOps, there's this additional responsibility in the way that's being added to your day to day. So in addition to experimenting, building new architectures, new models, um, evaluating data that you're using to build these models and so on, then productionalizing the code that you're creating. You also are expected to get it into production and then operate it. And I think the operation part is what MLOps is kind of uncovering for you. So like operations are complex, running kind of the day-to-day process of what it takes to operate machine learning technology is very involved and could take basically your entire time. So MLOps is what kind of captures all of these activities and are kind of putting it in the shoulders of ML practitioners, which is both exciting and kind of frustrating, because if you don't have the right tools to do this stuff, then you're
Right.
basically no longer building models, you're just operating them.
Very true. And this definitely answers for Manisha, and a great question and a great answer. Thanks, Eliza. And we have a comment from Ananda Ray. Roy, thanks, Lisa, for your response. Would like to know more about MLOps product of WhyLabs. So yes, definitely we'll be talking a lot around WhyLabs, and Elisa will give us a demo of our product, like just a sneak peek. So we will definitely get there after a few questions. Okay, another one coming from Aditi about MLOps. How would you explain MLOps to a layman?
That's a good one. Thank you, Aditi. So I would say it's the day-to-day activities that you perform when the model is impacting, when AI is impacting the lives of people.
Wow.
So how do you ensure that the impact on the lives of people is continuously positive and doesn't have any surprises? How do you
Wow.
ensure that the experience that you created with your AI uh, does not get quoted on Twitter when it fails?
I think this needs a quotation by your name, Elisa. You've just explained it very well. So thanks for this question, Aditi, and thanks for the answer, Elisa. Okay, moving on. Definitely want to know more about MLOps and what YLabs is doing at MLOps. But uh, just wanted to know your thoughts. Why do you feel MLOps has suddenly just picked up so much since 2019, but in last at least 6 to 8 months, I've heard about it so much. I see, obviously, data Seattle guy Benjamin talking about it, or data engineers talking about it. What's the reason behind it, Elisa?
um, I think the reason behind it is AI practitioners have been experiencing a lot of pain from something, and now it finally got a label. So they're
Oh,
very excited to talk about their pain with a particular label. I mean, I
okay,
think,
yes,
if first of all, I think it's a really nice, catchy way of kind of labeling a whole set of issues you experience when with your machine learning systems when they are operating in production. Secondly, I think, jokes aside, there's been a really
mm,
big shift in, I think, kind of uh, lowering the barrier to access to the AI technology in production. So I specifically mean, not just access to data, which, we can say Kaggle opened up a lot of data sets. Everybody started
right.
having, democratized access to the data that you can use to experiment with machine learning. But then in the last few years, what happened is the barrier to actually taking an ML system and getting it to production, getting it to a point where it's impacting other people or potentially impacting your business, that
Right.
barrier has been significantly lowered. And with this barrier being lowered, many organizations have gotten to a point where they have machine learning models operating in production. So now a lot of their problems are all around this post-production operations phase.
Hmm.
And MLOps is again a label for all of those pain points that you experience when you get to the exciting point when your model is already in production.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And George does say that, especially with the open data. Yes,
Yes, yes.
makes a lot of sense there. Okay, one quick question that I would pick from the audience is from Kalyan Prasad. Hey, Aliza, my question is, in ML observability, simply measuring drift is not enough. Do you think that it is really important? If yes, how to handle underlying issues when drift occurs?
Ooh, that's a spicy question. Thank you, Kalyan. Yes, I think simply measuring, well, there's this saying, what gets measured gets managed. So that's like the
Wow.
first step to solving your problem is to actually know that you have a problem. So measuring drift is important, but if you're just measuring it, then all you can do is just, I guess, report to your team that your model is drifting. So that's not enough, obviously. Handling underlying issues when the drift occurs. Well, there's some, it's absolutely what you should strive to do. And it's something, if you can, something that you can automate as much as possible. So if you're detecting drift in your model, the first most common thing that that causes this drift is a change. You're experiencing kind of natural data shift. So when your model is in the real world, it's experiencing the ever-changing real world, and it's drifting away from what your training data captured. So the very basic first thing to do is to see whether your model has drifted, the data that your model is seeing right now in production has drifted away from what you captured in the training data, and retrain. And, it's easy to say retrain. That might actually involve, labeling data, getting ground
Right.
truth, and so on. But the goal is to get to an updated model because the data around your model has changed significantly. There are other there could be other causes of drift that stem more from data quality problems. So for example, your data provider changed something in how they encode the data, and now after your feature transformation steps, you just have a ton of missing values, or new categories got introduced because, again, the data provider has changed something in the
Right.
way that they encode data. So I think the first step is, once you have detected that there's some kind of drift that's occurring, to figure out, is it caused by just the nature of the data that has changed, or is it caused by something that has changed within your data providers, and then tackle it from there. And as the more types of the more causes of drift you experience, the more ideas for automation you will figure out. And I think automating as much as possible and the step post detecting drift is really key here. So.
Wow, that's a fantastic answer to a fantastic question. Thanks, Kalyan. Okay, this was amazing explanation, Elisa. Definitely, it does help Kalyan to, obviously handle underlying issues when drift occurs. So, just moving on, I had a question. You've given so many talks, public talks, that data logging is a critical missing component in the production ML stack. Can you elaborate that statement? How does that work?
Yes, this is something I'm particularly passionate about. And I think in one of the previous questions, we lightly touched on that. So,
Yeah.
with traditional systems, we capture a lot of logs. It's kind of a no-brainer that you just can go into, a log directory, and you have, a bunch of health data about your system. With
Hmm.
machine learning systems, you have that same data, but then you have nothing that talks about the data that went through your machine learning pipeline. And that's really critical there, because machine learning systems, again, they are powered by data. So kind of noticing that this is something very concretely missing.
Right.
If you're not capturing the nature of the data that is flowing through your systems, you can't really debug. That was kind of the first thing that myself and, in the very early days of WhyLabs, my co-founders were talking about. We started experimenting with the idea of logging data. So logging, what does it mean to log data? What does it mean to just take
Yeah.
this paradigm of logging and bring it into the data world? And what we came up with and put into the open source actually is a library called WhyLogs. It's available on GitHub. And this library essentially allows you to treat data logging the same way you treat traditional systems logging. So if you have a data frame somewhere in your pipeline, in your code,
Hmm.
all you do is you invoke WhyLogs and you say, log this data frame. And in the matter of milliseconds, it will
Wow.
capture kind of all of the statistical properties of the data in that data frame. And what's really key is it will capture it in the way that is very systematic. So the resulted log files are mergeable. So you can take the statistics of your data from the beginning of the day and capture statistics every hour, and then you can aggregate it all together to see what the statistics of your data has been over the course of the day. Or if you have a distributed system, you can capture statistics of your data in every instance of the system that you're running, and then aggregate it together to get the overall health of the system. So we kind of recognize that this is something missing in the production machine learning stack. We also recognize that this then becomes a very basic building block to enable testing. So you can take the statistics, extract the constraints around your data from the statistics and then enable testing. Or if you're capturing the statistics systematically, let's say every hour, every day, you can start monitoring the statistics. So really, it's kind of this very, very basic thing that then the output of which, of this logging library, you can use to start building up a lot of your MLOps capabilities.
Wow, this is fantastic. I think it's one of the greatest things, and definitely why logs is something which you've created, which is amazing. And wanted to know, obviously, before I jump to my next question, which is very interesting question about why labs. But I would just want to remind those who have just joined us or joined us late. Elisa has been kind and she's offered a giveaway of WhyLabs swag. So what you just need to do is comment hashtag WhyLabs in your comment section and you will be entering the raffle automatically, and we'll announce the winners by end of the show. Okay, a quick question about, since WhyLabs came up here, I want to ask about how did WhyLabs name come up, what was the idea behind it?
Well, early on, before WhyLabs was a thing, I was spending a lot of time talking to AI practitioners who have models running in production, and I kept kind of having a discussion with them about their main pain points. And I've noticed that a lot of their pain points start with a question, like, well, why did my data change?
Wow.
Why did the behavior of my system change? Why am I seeing this error, and so on? So a lot of their questions began with why, and kind of summarizing that, we decided to build a company that will help answer all those why questions.
Wise. Wow, it's fantastic. And I thought so somewhere on those lines, but didn't go this deep. And this is fantastic way of answering those why by just coming to why labs. So fantastic. Okay, there's a quick question from Mike here. With WhyLabs, do you monitor AI through clients platform, that is Data Robot, or do you use your own interface or logging library? It's a great way to actually start with a demo too, Elisa. If you can give us a demo, or yeah, I'll let you answer this one for Mike first.
Absolutely, and then I'll give a quick overview. So thanks for the question, Mike. The way WhyLabs works is as a layer that goes on to whatever ML stack you chose to put together. And if it's a data robot stack or a SageMaker stack and so on, we integrate with that. We vend this open source logging library, WhyLogs, that has a lot of integrations. And really what it's meant to do is you plug it in wherever you have your data flowing, and it captures those statistical profiles, statistical fingerprints of your data. And then the WhyLabs platform works on top of that. So whether you're using, Datadog, as I said, or SageMaker or H2O, we want to meet you wherever you are with a very easy to work with logging and monitoring solution.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, before obviously you jump on to the platform, can you just tell us a little about the platform at WhyLabs and the future of it, and then we can jump to the demo, Elisa.
Absolutely. So the WhyLabs platform today, serves a lot of enterprises and early stage and mid stage startups in helping them get this transparency and accountability and powered by monitoring of their AI systems. Really what it accomplishes is giving a tool to data scientists and machine learning engineers that they could use day in and day out to see how healthy their machine learning models are and the data that powers these models is.
Wow.
And as far as kind of what's the next big thing for WhyLabs, well, we noticed that monitoring is needed by everyone, whether you are an AI practitioner in a company that is not ready for a centralized monitoring solution, but you still want monitoring, or you're a hobbyist data scientist who has a model running in production, or has a model running that you want to monitor and see how it's doing. We want to make monitoring available to you because it is so important. So what we're doing is we're actually opening up our platform with a community edition for everybody to use to instrument their models and to start monitoring and kind of feeling the power of observability. We are launching that in the coming weeks. We're currently running a private beta, and I'd love to share the private beta access with the listeners here at the show and get their feedback as we're slowly rolling out this community edition.
Okay, so what do they need to do? Where do they need to go for that? Is it this one, whylabs.ai/free? And this platform is for everyone out here, Elisa?
Yes, absolutely. It's a free access, free community access to the platform. Basically, once you fill out the form, you are dropped into the platform experience, and there is a walkthrough of how to instrument your model, how to get the data flowing, and I can maybe give a really quick demo and show what exactly does that look like.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to see.
Take a few seconds here. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Meanwhile, for the folks who have joined us, feel free to ask any questions to Elisa around AI observability, MLOps, and definitely about her journey. So you have all the good time to ask her and the best opportunity here. So here we go.
Fantastic. So what I'm showing here is probably well-recognized collaboratory notebook. I know a lot of data scientists and ML practitioners work in notebooks. What I just did is I installed WhyLogs. WhyLogs is that open source library that you can check out here on GitHub. And what it does, actually out of the box, it works in a fully offline mode, doesn't send data anywhere, just logs the data that you can then, go back to and see what the log files look like and use that for debugging. If you're collecting these log files more or less systematically, you could start sending them over to the WhyLabs platform to visualize and monitor. So what I did here is I installed WhyLogs. And then what I'm going to do is I will create a demo account here and walk you through kind of the experience that you will have if you were to create an account right now and start getting data over to WhyLabs. So I have a little nifty code here. So here you go. You have already provisioned the WhyLabs platform. Your account is getting set up. And the next thing that you'll need to do is start going through the getting started guide. So I'll generate a quick API token that essentially gives me all I need to set up WhyLabs connections. So it gives me an API key, an org ID, and so on. So I take this and I have this a little bit of code in this notebook, and I'll walk you through it. I'm pasting this code from the demo, from the workflow. And what I'm doing here is I want to kind of show you a little bit of an interesting demo. What I have set up is I have some data from a model that's been running in daily batches over the last 7 days. And I want to show you what happens if you start logging this data with WhyLabs over the course of 7 days. So imagine you have a model that's running daily and it's not instrumented at all. So to figure out what data it processed yesterday, you have to replay the whole thing. Instead, if you're instrumenting it with WhyLabs, this is all you'll have to do. So I am loading the data here really quickly. And I think what's important to show, and this is going to be model 1 from here, what's important to show is that the process of logging data is extremely fast. And great. The process of logging data is extremely fast. I'm going to run this again to see what happened. And what you're going to experience is that the loading of the data is also really fast. And all we do is we log this one data frame. And logging this one data frame means that we just get the statistical fingerprints of the data, and we send these statistical fingerprints onto the platform. So no raw data ever leaves your premises. Only the high-level statistics would be leaving your premises.
Wow.
I'm hoping that this collaboratory notebook is not going to fail me. Oh, thank you. Okay, well, to show you what that looks like if we are loading it over. Thank you, Collaboratory. You're always so reliable. I'm just gonna drop you into the demo sandbox and show you
Yeah.
what it looks like if you're tracking models for a course of months. So I just went back all the way back to May. And today we're in October. So we have a handful of models that we've been monitoring since May. And if we jump into one of these models that has been experiencing quite a few issues since May, we can see all of the data that it has ingested on daily basis over the course of this entire time. So instead of replaying everything, you now can go back historically and see, what was the data that this model has been ingesting? Does this data look healthy? Does this data look unhealthy? What kind of alerts have been generated? And you can dive pretty deep into this data and start investigating various aspects of its health. So in this particular case, we're ingesting states, and we can look, okay, on any given date, this is the state data that was ingested, and these are some outliers that we see. Data is not available, data outages, and so on. So it's amazing to kind of continuously keep track of the data that your model ingests, and it allows you to debug and troubleshoot so much faster. And now with getting alerts sent directly into your Slack channels or PagerDuty ServiceNow workflows, you no longer have to kind of babysit your models and your data. You just essentially watch the alerts and make sure that if an alert occurs, you go in and you start your debugging investigation.
Wow, this is pretty sleek. And it takes you back, obviously, historically, and gets you to a place where you started off. So, yeah, this is
Yes,
amazing.
and if you can, and if you're now trying it with your own WhyLabs account, you probably have a better luck at getting your collaboratory environment cooperating than me. So send me feedback as you get logging this. So I'd love to hear how your experience has been.
Amazing. What I'll also do with the audience is share the link where they can actually have a look at and they can sign up. Not only today, I'll share it tomorrow as well, so folks can have a look at it and sign up and try WhyLabs. Why not?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. So this was great demo. Thanks for that, Elisa. Okay, I will quickly move on to more in the data centric field. Obviously, data centric AI is the recent movement that is being started by Andrew Ng, drawing the focus of AI practitioners on the importance of systematic engineering practices for improving data that powers AI systems. So, how does WhyLabs fit into this paradigm? Is it still in the early stage, or you have gone like all in with this? How does that work?
Thank you. This is a great discussion point. I think data-centric AI is, similar to MLOps. It is a really well, it's a really fitting label to a set of problems that we've been experiencing for a really long time, but didn't have a common name for it. So now we do. So I think the data-centric AI movement is super important for our community. It's the movement that recognizes how important the data is in the machine learning systems, that it's not all about the architectures or how much compute can you get to train the bigger model, to get more training data, and so on. It's about looking at the quality of your data, looking at where did this data come from? How can you make sure that systematically, day in and day out, this data is reliable and this data is reflecting what you expected it to reflect when you trained your model? And with WhyLabs, we've been without explicitly naming it data-centric, we've been focusing on data from day one because we've seen that a lot of the problems that ML practitioners face day in and day out stem from data. And these are the problems that are hardest to debug because we do not have those data-centric tools. So I think the data-centric AI movement really brings forward, the main problems that we're experiencing in the community, the fact that we do not have really good practice for systematically engineering data things, data pipelines, predictive systems that are powered by data and so on. And I'm really excited that now it has a name, it has a title, and we can have a lot of conversations around it. I'm particularly excited about the NeurIPS workshop that's happening in December on the data centric AI. I think when it gets to the point of the NeurIPS conference, I think that is when it's starting to become, mainstream and focuses not just people in the industry, but also people in research. So super stoked about the movement.
Wow, this is fantastic. And also, Elisa, I just want to go a little back where obviously you mentioned you did do a demo, and the comments that came in from folks are George says cool spark lines. Mike says that looks brilliant and so easy to use with great visuals. Visuals are fantastic. And Christine has a big comment there. She says this tool looks like a great way to collect data on the data collection process. In machine learning, it almost provides a notebook on the process involved in machine learning. So
Thank you,
all
Christine.
sounds good. For those folks who are wondering where you can sign up, I will just quickly let you know where you can quickly go and sign up for this. It's whylabs.ai/free, and you can register for it. And it's Elisa is being too kind today because she just is giving away swag and free platform version to you too. So guys, go and check it out. It's great work by WhyLabs. Thanks, Elisa, for this kind moment.
Thank you. It's not kindness. The only way we can build these systems is through feedback of users. Right. So would love to hear feedback and, wish lists, feature requests. How can we make this better? And how can we open access to it for everybody?
Wow, that's fantastic. And I'm sure that's a great news for all the folks. It's in the chat. You can actually have a look at it and go and check it out. Okay, moving on. Since we were talking a little around MLOps, I'll still jump. I do have a few more questions there. What do you think are some of the most exciting development in MLOps community and tool ecosystem? What do you think?
Well, the MLOps community also has an MLOps community called MLOps Community. That's I think one of the really exciting aspects of it is that Demetrius is running a big Slack channel that has been ever growing. I remember the days when the Slack channel just started, and there were a few hundred people, and now there are thousands of people. A lot of fantastic discussion, and everybody who is involved in day in and day out thinking of what MLOps is becoming is there in that community. I think it's a fantastic place to kind of learn more and get engaged and give feedback and share your experiences. So that's one exciting thing. There's also the IM movement, which is a movement to kind of build the de facto, come up with a de facto production machine learning stack by figuring out how do all the pieces come together, whether it's, an open source stack or an enterprise stack. How do you stop kind of this analysis paralysis of all the tools and vendors that are out there and kind of think of these systems as blueprints? So the AI community, the AI Infrastructure Alliance is really spearheading this effort, and it's making this whole concept of MLOps more concrete by giving us very concrete kind of blueprints of what can a system look like that is put together via bringing and gluing together various components. So I think overall, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a concept of a full stack machine learning engineer is forming, and MLOps is kind of becoming part of that concept now. So with knowing the right tools for the right jobs, the right tools that will empower you to build better models, to maintain models in production more effectively, that is probably the most exciting aspect of kind of this paradigm change. You don't have to build everything. You don't have to have hundreds of Jupyter notebooks that kind of help you profile things. There is a really large group of people that is spending their days thinking about creating these better tools that would empower, this army of full stack ML engineers that are building all of our AI experiences across the internet.
Okay, that's a great answer there, Elisa. Thanks for that. And quickly, before I jump on and we kind of wrap up the show, just letting folks know that they still have a chance to win WhyLabs swag. And what you need to do is just type in hashtag WhyLabs in the chat, and you will be up for the raffle. I already see 7 entries, which is great. So, folks, we will be announcing the winner very soon, and I'm sure Elisa, you'll find it very jazzy the way how we announce it. I'm sure it's new to you, but I'll show that by end of the show. Okay, quickly, I did see a question in the audience which was very interesting to me. So, and it's from YouTube, so I would love to pick that up from Mavi Kinvasra. Coming from a finance background, is ML ops applied in financial field anywhere?
Ooh, I love this question. I think, MLOps have been practiced in the finance field for a long time because, finance is where a lot of the ML or, very simple maybe ML systems have been running for the past decade. So the finance community can actually teach us a lot about the right tooling that's necessary for building very robust systems. Because on top of the fact that they've been running these systems for a really long time, the financial market is also regulated. So they have to make sure that these systems are transparent and auditable and are properly governed and so on. So I think what majority of the AI practitioners are just kind of learning about the proper way of maintaining machine learning systems in production. In finance, these practices and workflows have been built some time ago. And now I think with the MLOps movement, they're scaled out, streamlined, and they're made simpler to use and so on.
Yeah, and I also think with MLOps, obviously there have been machine learning, algo trading, which also did come in and is being picking up very well. Where in finance, if you're thinking of getting into trading, machine learning, algorithmic trading is something which definitely makes a lot of difference there. So great question and definitely a great answer, Elisa, because it kind of gives us a good overview of not only just specific industry but also finance industry. So looks good. Okay, one last question that I want to pick. I'm so sorry, Elisa, but there are such interesting questions, and this is more of a question coming from YouTube around someone who wishes to learn about MLOps. So, what Daksh asks, what will be the career path for MLOps?
Ooh,
Interesting.
I mean, I think if you look at the DevOps movement, that would tell you a lot. So, DevOps engineer is a really, really common job. It's, whenever a team reaches any kind of real product and product adoption, they can't survive without a DevOps engineer. And I think probably a similar thing will happen with MLOps. So I think while I've said a few times, there's going to be this shift where the full stack ML engineer is going to understand MLOps and know all of the kind of table stakes tools. The MLOps movement itself will probably grow to a point where in order to be an expert and make sure that you can supply the right tools for the most unique and complex use cases, you can just focus on MLOps tools in your career and essentially be that go-to person that helps the team figure out how to operate their models once they are in production. I certainly do hope that this becomes its own job family, and I think it's becoming ever so hot. Actually, if you go onto, I don't know, maybe like a popular job site, Indeed would be a good example. There are already many companies that are hiring specifically MLOps engineers.
Wow. It's it's just, I think it's just starting. So now it has a long way to go. Okay. I know there are many questions still there. I would definitely ask Elysia to have a look at those and answer for you guys. But moving on, it's time for us to announce the giveaway. And those who would be winning today, what are they winning? Just let me show it to them. This cool swag from WhyLabs, run AI with certainty. So, folks, it's time we go on, jump on, and let you just let me bring my screen up and we can announce the winners. Okay, let's do the raffle. We have 11 entries, which is good. Okay, here we go. Let's see who the winner is. And the winner is Chetna Naidu, congratulations. You win WhyLabs swag, and definitely I'll reach out to you for the address and everything. And you should be, please feel free to send us a photo with WhyLabs swag. We would love to see that. Uh, but it was great, fantastic session, Elysia. It's so much to learn about AI observability, MLOps. You are like the you have like such great knowledge about ML ops, and you've no doubt about it, because obviously you've been one of the most active speakers out there who were the most early adopters for ML ops. But this session was fantastic, and would love to hear your experience. Would love to have a 2.0 version with you on the Ravit Show. Can't wait for that. But this was good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think what made this session really fantastic is questions from the listeners, which were
Exactly.
awesome and very pointed questions. I personally really enjoyed this, and I'll go back and try to answer as many questions as I see there later today. And yeah, it's been really fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Elysia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we will definitely plan a 2.0 version with Elysia when there are more developments happening at WhyLabs. And don't forget to, last but not the least, don't forget to go and sign up at whylabs.ai/free, and you can have the access to platform. Okay, Elysia, have a nice day ahead. And it was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. And